Welcome to another Paradox podcast. I'm Dr. Steve, and with me is Dr. Ruth, and we are on page 50 of the Year One Study Guide. The topic today is Fama. Now, as I look at this page, it is quite evident that we're going to be dealing with history and some historical figures. And so, Ruth, you are going to be taking the lead on this, but let me just say up front that when we think of Fama, there are some words that would come to mind, or at least we think we have some words that come to mind. So we have helped you. On page 47 of the study guide, there are some words there. And of course, when we hear the word Fama, we think of fame.
But along with fame can come notoriety or reputation. And of course, we're thinking about this in regards to the topic at hand of what is success. And of course, the world will say, well, are you a celebrity? Do you have influence? And what's your reach? Are you the talk of the town? What kind of appearance do you have in front of others? But it can also have to do with rumor, but a lot has to do with our status in society. And unfortunately, we know that Fama can infiltrate even our walk with the Lord, or our position in a church, or even our church itself. Ruth, as we think about Fama, and we're on page 50, help us out. Give us some context and some history in regards to Fama.
Well, the examples that I've chosen to have us take a look at all come from the 9th and 10th century in France. They are all people who lived during that period. They had different walks of life. One of them is a knight. He went to battle on his horse and defended his castle and all of that stuff that you can imagine. One was the abbot of a multi-site monastery. So he had lots of responsibility and a huge reputation. And the third is a monk in a single monastery. They all have different responses to what's going on with their reputations. One of them has this great reputation for holiness. Another one has a reputation as like this major leader that is threatened and gets damaged. And the third, well, he's working on trying to get a reputation of some kind. So we're going to take a look at these and then maybe see how they can help us understand some things about Fama. So the first one, his name is Gerald of Aurillac. He lived from 855 AD to 909 AD. He was a knight and a count. He was a vassal to the King of France. The king's name was Charles the Straightforward, which is kind of ironic because Charles was not straightforward at all. When this knight heard the word preached, he was convicted deeply of things he had done wrong in his life. As a person who went into battle, the people he had killed unjustly, the ways he had supported his king that were maybe not positive, all of this was coming back to haunt him. Really, what he wants to do is to give it all up and say, I'm going to just let go of all this, and I'm going to go into a monastery and I'm going to pray, see if I can atone for my sins. But a friend of his counsels him not to do that. He says, no, you can do more good if you stay as a knight and a count and help your people and advise the king than you could if you withdraw from the world. So Gerald says, okay, I'll do that. But all along, he is secretly giving to the poor, and he is constantly praying for people. His life is that pray without ceasing kind of a life. And he is utterly devoted to giving all the glory to God. And this is in spite of, in his later years, going blind and being in ill health. Well, word of his devotion gets out, and people start wanting to lift him up. They want to come to him and say, hey, could you lay your hands on me and pray for me? And they keep wanting to come and even give him gifts because they see his holiness. He's a knight, he's not clergy. He gets this huge reputation for holiness even before he dies.
He's got the buzz and the talk of the town.
He's got the buzz and the talk of the town. He's made it in the sense of the success of people knowing about him. So what do you think happened? Did this Fama, this big reputation, go to his head? Or did he manage to live his life to the glory of God solely?
Well, you know how my history knowledge is very limited. Since he became the buzz and the talk of the town, I am going to say that Fama got to his head.
Well, if you said that in this case, you would be wrong. It did not get to his head.
Uh-oh.
He actually died glorifying God and saying to everyone who tried to look to him as this wonderful individual is, no, we give all glory to God. He's why I can do what I do. After his death, the story of his life is written as a model for this is how you can be a person who glorifies God and lives a holy life, even if you're a knight. And it was one of the first ones like that. I mean, we need models like that. We need models of people who can handle Fama, can handle the big reputation. And they're hard to find.
Well, that's good for him, but not good for me because I'm 0 for 1 and people are hearing this. It's being recorded. So, what will be the talk of the town in regards to me? Oh, wait, no, that's entering into Fama. That's not good. All right, so that's the first one. Who's the second historical figure?
Well, the second historical figure, his name is Abbo of Fleury, and he was an abbot. Basically, what an abbot is the head of a monastery. So he was like the pastor of a bunch of men who had committed their lives to prayer and to communal living. That's what he was in charge of. But in his case, he had maybe 50 to 100 different sites that he was in charge of. So he was a person who had oversight of all these people. In that sense, he had a large reputation as well, a reputation to defend, because there were people who were looking for him to fall. He wasn't paranoid, even though it might sound like it, but there were people who were saying, oh, let's look at this guy, this big pastor here, and let's see if he's going to crash and burn.
He was like a part of a mega monastery.
You could say that. He was the abbot of Fleury, and Fleury is a location in France. There's another location in France called Cluny, where there was also a monastery, which also had a whole bunch of sites that it was in charge of. And they were kind of these two big monastic organizations. So you have the head of Cluny as well. Well, what happens is Abbo takes a trip. And one of the things these abbots would do of these multi-site monasteries is they would travel around and they would visit them. And so he was on his trip, and there weren't hotels. So if you stopped overnight, you might stop at a guest room at another monastery, and it might not be one that's in your organization. It might be like one of the other ones. So he went into this one, and he meets a young monk who is really eager to learn. And so he has a great conversation with him, and it all seems well. And then he leaves, and a rumor starts. And that rumor is that Abbo was trying to horn in on Cluny's territory and take the monks and the monastery that he had stayed the night in and make it part of Fleury's. So this is damaging to Abbo's reputation, but it also is hurting the relationship between these two monastic organizations. It's just damaging all around. So Abbo writes a letter saying, I'm so sorry this has happened. Basically, he's saying, we want friendship between our two organizations. I'm so sorry. And he writes it in terms of lament. And I have a piece of that on page 50. I lament that this rumor that he was going to take the monastery, shattered your monastery in any way. I'm lamenting the damage that I've caused to you. I lament that the jealousy of the devil creeps into men of our profession through a lack of discipline. I lament that, we haven't been disciplined in our submission to God enough, and we've let jealousy creep in and cause this split. that those who are called monks are made slanderers of brothers. So there's people, slandering the reputation of Abbo and of Fleury, inflamers of faults, blowing things out of proportion, and that they gnaw the guts of the mother church to pieces with a viperous tooth. I think that's my favorite line in the letter. It gives you a picture of what this rumor is doing to the reputation of these two organizations. It's just kind of eating away at it. And so I guess my question here is, in what ways have you seen Fama, rumors, things said about it, hearsay, eat away at the reputation of the church, and think in terms of church capital C?
Well, that certainly is happening today. When you were talking about Abbo, I was thinking, the rumor is almost like that he's sheep stealing, or there's some kind of a church takeover. The word gets out. But when it comes to the church today, there is just so much negativity, and it can come from those from within. So we even have terms like the duns, where they're just done with Christianity. They're done with going to church because of all the hypocrisy, or just the way that politics has come in, or what have you, or the fall of prominent pastors. I remember when I was a member of a tennis club in South Pasadena, and when they found out that I was a pastor, they immediately associated me with, and then they started naming the pastors that have been in the news, the ones that have done bad things. And so I kind of understand from the outside that they could have a negative thought towards the church, which is sad in of itself, but it's within the church, those that have been a part of the church, and then they leave the church, and not only leave, but now they might even be actively speaking out against the church and using social media. I think today, the buzzword is deconstruction, and just kind of saying very bad things about either a local church, or more specifically, like the evangelical church in general. And it's a very sad thing, because we're talking about the bride of Christ, and we need to be very careful what we say about the bride of Christ.
One of the things that came to mind is when we talked about last semester about speaking the truth in love, that there needs to be commitment to truth within the church and a commitment to loving one another. Well, my last person, Odoranus of Sens, was born in 985, and he lived to 1048 AD. He left behind a book that gives examples of all of his accomplishments in it. And it's kind of a sad story, because what that book shows is a picture of a life. In his introduction, he talks about how he has got this major problem with his foot. He's only got half his hair, these other things that are going wrong with him. Then he goes on to talk about all the things he's done, how he made a box that was overlaid with gold and silver for the king in an effort to get favor with the king, how he was a secretary for a time to an influential church leader. He composes worship music, teaches others to compose worship music. He wrote a history of how his religious organization began. He even made a collection of laws that he was going to use to advise the powerful, and never got a chance. He's left with this book that is an effort to make his memory live on, to have some kind of reputation live on. And yet we've lost the title page. It's kind of a sad story of this person who is seeking fama, seeking reputation, but he's looking for it in the wrong places. So, Steve, what would you give the title to this guy's book if you were going to give him a title?
Well, let's see. Okay, so based off what you said, I would maybe give the title of the book, Title or Testimony. Looks like he was really seeking a title and his reputation and a name for himself. But like you made mention here, he never made it to the room where it happened. He missed it by that much. But really, he missed it by a lot. because he didn't understand what is success. It's the
Right.
person that we become, because what we give to God in the end is the person that we become. And he wasn't interested in his testimony. It was more, he was interested in his title and fame.
He was
That's what
interested in the things he did and not the person he became. And I think that's what we need to think about is where does our reputation come from? What kind of person and what kind of reputation do we have? It comes from being the kind of person that we see in person.
I like your last question. If you were to write a book that encompassed all your work, what would the title be? And I think maybe my title would either be Honey, I Shrunk the Church.
Mm.
No, we won't go there. I think I would call it Grace Upon Grace. Because I think as I think of my own spiritual autobiography, I just see God moving me along, helping me to make decisions. Who are my friends and what will I get involved in? And then who will I marry and so forth. And it just seems like God has always been nudging me in certain directions. It's just his grace upon grace in my life. Ruth, do you have a title for your book?
Well, my funny title would be Wait, what?
Wait,
Because
what?
that seemed like what I'm always saying
Wait,
to
you're
God
looking
is, wait,
directly
what are
at
we
me
going to
when
do
you
now?
say that.
But what it really is led by his hand. That as I look back on my life, I see his leading all the way through.
Led by his hand. You know what? I think that's a good place for us to close here. I mean, wow, led by his hand and recognizing God is the one who is at work. He's the one to get the glory.
Mm-hmm.
And, just thinking about how we're all now thinking of our spiritual autobiography. And we're not going to write it in such a way as to kind of like toot our own horn and make ourselves look great and marvelous. What we want to do is show how God is the hero in our story and what God has been doing, how he has been writing his story on the pages of our life. And so we look forward to hearing the initial steps that y'all have been taking and thinking about your spiritual autobiography. And Ruth, thank you for helping us to understand a little bit more about Fama and how it really does play a part in the history of the church, both good and bad. And so on behalf of Dr. Ruth and myself, we really want to say that we are really looking forward to the next time that we get to see you all face to face.